Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A. Yeah, what an exciting time it's been. Because I can tell you why it's been an exciting time. It's been an exciting week here on the Greek island with some, let's call it, different to normal weather, with some very exciting winds, especially today. Got out this afternoon with Kush, who's come all the way from Michigan, USA, and we banged. It was challenging conditions, but we banged in almost 20 knots over 10 seconds on the water speed app GPS, which yeah, I was pretty happy with that. But a lovely time there. And most exciting from my point of view is tomorrow is the launch of the Water Speed Joyrider TV 6 weeks of speed competition. This is very exciting. It's the first time I've had an event hosted by somebody else. And just to full disclosure from the get-go, this is only available at the moment for people using an iPhone. So apologies to anybody who is using Android that you're not going to be able to get involved with this particular one. But Waterspeed has assured me that at the start of the new year, it should be available for Android as well. And then hopefully we can do something big with those guys moving forward with regards to the speed stick. Yeah, as soon as I started using this app, I knew that this was the one that I wanted to stick with, because it gives so many good statistics of your run, like what your tacking performance was like. So how long it took you in your tack to get back up to speed. Very nice. Same with jibes. And then, of course, the the average speeds over different distances and times. So the 6 weeks of speed competition is going to be for 5-second averages. And I'm under the opinion, although I've been called out on this, I'm under the opinion that by doing a 5-second average, better still would be 10-second average. It means, yes, granted, the speed that you have on the leaderboard isn't going to be quite as impressive, but the accuracy of the speeds that are posted are more likely to be true than what we do on the speed stick, which works really well, but you do get sometimes some sort of glitchy GPS results on there when somebody says, yeah, I did 72 knots on a Hobie Dragoon while I was towing a friend on a Lilo. I'd have to raise the eyebrow at speeds like that and think perhaps something was a little bit funky with your GPS signal at that time. And so I'm a believer in the 5-second average speed to get a more accurate result. So what else have I been doing today? Yeah, I've been down in the boat park with Bad Boy 95, the Hobie 16, doing some work on the rudders to make it as quick as possible. Because when this speed competition is launched tomorrow, yes, I'm actually going to be competing in this one against the rest of the world and you guys. So yeah, I wanted to get my 16 running as sweet as possible so that I could bang in some pretty big speeds of my own and give you something to chase, hopefully, until somebody gives me something to chase, hopefully. So exciting times there. Yeah, so that is the world of excitement in my world at the moment. Just like to check point, not so much in the preloaded. So if you have got any questions in the live chat, please do fire away. Otherwise, this is going to be a remarkably short session, or I might talk about how you can tack better again, because that is trending, apparently. So hello to Spicy Fist 1, who he gets the gold star for being first in class today. All right, so Spicy Fist has I've updated the speed stick leaderboard again. I know I did the speed stick video, I think it was on Monday, but what always happens is following the speed stick update video, it kind of gives everyone a poke to send in their new top speeds. And we've had a big shake up on the speed stick leaderboard, and we've now got a foiling boat in the lead. I'm not going to tell you what score he got, what speed he got. You can check it out. There's a link if you're in the live chat. I put a link in the start early in the live chat, or you could just head over there. It's big shake up. We've also had on the speed stick leaderboard a big, if you have a look at that, you'll see there's quite a lot of entries from East London, South Africa. Now, this is because the East London Sailing Club in South Africa have been running their own speed stick leaderboard, and they've submitted it all at once to the global speed stick. So that is why there's a lot of East London, South Africa there. But I think that is a really great idea for sailing clubs to do, to add a little bit of spice to your already spicy sailing program, is to say, right, here is the sailing club speed stick. Let's see who can smash it. A lot of Dart 18s and Hobie 16s down there locking horns over the big speeds. Great to see. All right. So, Spicy Fist, who is the owner of Lazarus the Unholy, the Hurricane 5.9, says he's got a spinnaker on there now. So we'll be making an assault on that list soon. All right, we've got Felix on board. Hello, Felix. He says, I'm with Joe on the 5-second average. But it is sad that water speed isn't yet on Android. But when that day comes, they'll be ringing the bells. Oh, yes, the bells of something big to come. So that is why at the moment I'm really trying to promote this 6 weeks of speed for everybody who is using an iPhone, to make it as popular as possible. So then hopefully Water Speed will be happy to host another Joyrider TV speed event on there once the Android version is out. So it is in the interest of everyone. All right, Kush is on board. That's Kush, who I was sailing with earlier on, just 2 hours ago, I think. That certainly was a wild ride. Yeah, pretty white knuckle at times. It was there was some big gusts going through, that is for sure. All right, Hanny's with us in Amsterdam. The storm on Monday kept me a little bit longer at the airport. I was just here, and we have had some weather this week, so a bit of a delay there. Nice to have you with us, Hanny, and good that you made it back safe and sound. All right, we've got Scott dropping it in the slot as he does. Morning, Scott. Good to have you with us. Peter's with us from Sweden. Peter's now on the speed stick with a tornado. Like to see some more tornadoes on the speed stick. That would be nice. They're quick. All right, Felix says we'll have to make my mate bring his iPhone, and we'll have to attack this challenge tomorrow. Yeah, anytime from tomorrow for 6 weeks. All you have to do is go onto the app on your phone, log in. If you don't yet have an ID, you just log in with your email address like you do with most things. I've got to the stage now where I just log in with Google. It saves having to come up with a password or anything. And then you'll see on the diary tab, if you go on the diary, that's where all of your speeds are recorded. It's got challenges. Just click on the Joyrider 6 weeks of speed challenge. And that means that once you've entered there, every time you go sailing with that app running, your new top speed will be updated on that leaderboard. Very nice. There is also a part in session details where you can enter. It's called, on there it says equipment, and under equipment you could just put your type of boat, and I think that'd just be very nice for everybody else who's looking at the leaderboard to know what types of boat were being used. Oh yes. If you haven't yet got a t-shirt with your boat on it, totaljoyrider.com, and then a cup to go with t-shirt, I know that's fancy. Some might say it's a bit much, but what can you do? All right, so Peter says, I do have a specific question regarding the Tornado shroud adjusters. Right. Is there any restriction that you know of to what type of adjuster the rules allow? No, you can use whatever you like on the Tornado. It seems that all of the Master-on boats come with the same shroud adjuster, which does look like it is something out of the early 80s with a big nut, which you just wind on with your spanner. But the more streamlined adjusters like you get on the modern F-18s, you can basically use whatever you like, whatever suits you and your situation. So yeah, on you go. All right. So Scott, Cultus Lake, Oregon, sailing season coming to an end for me here in Oregon. Is there anybody around the Naples, Florida area still sailing in early November? I'll be in the neighborhood and would love to come for a ride along. All right. So, yeah, Scott is very good at hitching a lift on other people's boats. And Scott is a very good sailor as well. So there are definitely worse people you could have on your boat. Yeah, so please put it in the comment section or just hit Scott's name in the comments and you can have a little chat. Or better still, check out the Discord chat. You'll find the link to the Joyrider TV Discord chat in the description of any video. Just go down there, and that is specifically set up for people who are either wanting people to sail with. So you could say, I've got a boat, I've got a Nacra 5.2, I sail in Mission Bay, San Diego, and if anybody's coming who is a Joyrider TV community member, if you'd like to come and join me for a sail, that would be great. Or you could do it the other way. Yes, I'm coming to Tahiti for my honeymoon. And if there's anybody sailing any catamaran on the island of Tahiti, let me know, because I'd love to be able to jump on for a ride on your boat with you. That sort of thing. Might not do the honeymoon much good, but anyway. All right. So Benny's on board in Sweden. The summer is over now here. Oh, no. I must have got in there just in time, because when I was in Sweden the week before last, it was pretty nice. I'd say using the forward whip semi-dry suit, you can just see it in the background just about. Yeah, the forward whip semi-dry suit, I was toasty and warm. Yeah, very good suit for the colder conditions. But I think there was another 10 degrees of coldness we could have gone to, and it would have still been all right. Yeah, very nice. All right, so I've got my one preloaded question, which is from Pietro in Italy, who's sailing a Mattia 18, which is kind of like one of the precursors to the Formula 18 boat, but it's got a shorter mast than the F18, and it's not as wide. But Pietro's question is to do with the tuning of the boat, but in particular the mast rotation. So how should we present this the best? Can we use this? It's not quite so easy to see the angle of the mast, unless we sneakily use a different color. Can we see that? Yes, we can. All right, very nice. What I need is some light colored magnetic boats. All right, so the mast rotation control on certain boats, like mostly bigger boats or the more kind of technical boats, we do have adjustment on the mast rotation. On the boats which don't have adjustment on the mast rotation, they are generally set up the way that they're built in the factory so that the mast will rotate to what is the generally optimal position. So this is the mast, and that optimal position is generally pointing at the shroud. So if your mast rotation is pointing at the shroud most of the time and you don't really want to adjust it very much, then that is fine. Just point it at the shroud. Usually on a adjustment system, you have some sort of restrictive adjustment system, which means you have some sort of line which goes to a cleat, which basically stop the mast naturally wants to rotate all of the way because of the way that the sail, and if you've got a boom, pushes the mast. It's trying to push it forwards, which is trying to push it all the way round to 90 degrees. So you pull this restrictive line on, if you've got one, and point it at the shroud, and that is a very good general position if you don't want to have to adjust it while you're sailing. If you feel when you're sailing you've got enough to think about without having to think about the mast rotation as well, then that is fine. Okay, but if we want to do more with the mast rotation, let's firstly look at what we can do on the upwind point of sail. We're going to keep it pointing at the shroud, and then when the wind increases and you start getting overpowered, the first thing that we want to do when we start getting overpowered is pull on the downhaul more. So we're really going to crank on the downhaul until we're still going to have the mast in this position, but we're going to crank the downhaul on absolutely as hard as it will go. And that is when you're getting overpowered. If you still feel overpowered and you haven't yet cranked the downhaul on as hard as it will go, then you really should crank that bad boy on before you do anything else. Granted, you might have to sheet out the main sheet for a gust, otherwise you might capsize, or you could head up for a gust as well. It's going to have a similar effect. But get the downhaul on first before you make any other rig tuning kind of type adjustments. So once the downhaul on is on full, if you're still overpowered on the upwind, then you should pull the mast rotation using this line which restricts it. Pull the mast rotation on until the spanner bar, the mast rotation bar, is kind of pointing. That's the most we ever want to have on, so that this bar is pointing just forwards of the back beam. So that's as much as you ever want to pull on. You don't want to put it on bar tight so that the mast is straight in line, because if you do that, that is effectively oversheeting the mast, and that's going to be, it's going to have a similar effect to oversheeting the mainsail, because when we're sailing, this is our kind of apparent wind angle on the boat, and we don't want to have the mast in too tight. We want to have it in line with the apparent wind angle, because we want an even flow of air over both sides of the sail. And if we put it in more, it's not actually going to help us with our power. But by pulling it in so it's in line with the apparent wind angle, with the downhaul cranked in, that means that the mast and the sail becomes one flat entity, which is definitely what we want for upwind sailing when the wind is strong. while we're on the topic of flattening things off, we want to flatten our jib as well. I found a jib. And the way we're going to flatten off the jib is if we've got the means to adjust the luff tension, not the rig tension using the jib halyard, but the actual tension in the luff, the front edge of the jib, then we want to tighten that up. That does the same on the jib as the downhaul does on the mainsail. But as I may have said before, we never want to have it if we haven't got a wire front edge which is part of the jib, we never want to have the jib tighter than the forestay. So if you've got a jib which has got a zip, which is quite common, so you'd have, this would be the zip, and then you've got your adjustment which pulls the jib down. If when you unzip the jib, if you see inside the zip your forestay isn't tight, that's because the jib is too tight. And if you sail with the jib, let's call it the jib Cunningham or the jib downhaul, if you sail with the jib downhaul too tight, you're going to end up stretching or perhaps even ripping your jib in half. So just be very careful not to tighten it too much. Something you'll see first with the front of the jib when you are tightening up the jib Cunningham jib downhaul is, if this is the profile of the jib, it'll be quite, let's do it as if it's here. So it'll be quite tight. But then the front, they'll have a hard, it'll have like a hard angle on there if you've tightened it too much. So if you've tightened it and you see it's actually flat, and then it, like that would be about an inch of sailcloth, and then you've got the rest of the sail, that is too tight. So you just want to ease it off slightly. Yeah. So once you've tightened your jib downhaul, the other thing we want to do to flatten the jib is to really sheet it in very hard. Because if the jib is getting pulled back this way very hard and it'll be down as well, then that means you're going to pull all of that curve out of the jib, and you're going to have a very flat jib, which makes it very efficient for strong wind, upwind sailing. There we go, the jib. What else can you do if, let's just continue on the upwind journey, if the wind is very strong and maybe you still feel, you've been out sailing and you still feel, even with making these adjustments, there's still a load of curve in the sail. What can you do to help? Well, on these types of boats, where can I put this? Just here? I think so. We've got what are called diamond wires, because they make the shape of a diamond. They should be called kite wires, but that would be confusing because it's more the shape of a kite. So they come like that, and then to the bottom of the mast. And what they do is, if the mast is side on, you've got these spreaders that come back a little bit, and the wire goes like this to the bottom, and that pushes that part of the mast forwards, which actually puts bend into the mast. And the more bend we've put into the mast before we go sailing, the flatter our mainsail is going to be. So if you have too much curve in the mainsail, we're going into some detail here, by the way. It's because we haven't got any other questions in the preloaded. But all right. So if we look at the mast from the top, and then here are our spreaders, we set the angle of the spreaders according to the weight of the sailors. So the heavier the sailors are on the boat, and it's a little bit of a painful operation to adjust them. So if you're not sailing with the same team all the time, you should set them at a kind of midpoint of adjustment. But the lighter you are as a team, the further back your spreaders should come, because what that is going to do by having them back more is it's going to bend the mast more, which is going to help to flatten the sail. It's going to help to make flattening the sail easier, which is really going to help you out when the wind picks up. Whereas if you're heavier, you're going to want more power, which means, so heavier we'll do in red. We want the spreaders less back, so that they're more in line with the mast. And that is going to give us a straighter mast, which is going to give us more curve in the mainsail, which is going to mean we have more power, more shape. So there we go. Yeah, and so we've the spreaders are set up. If you want to know the numbers, what amount to put on the different spreaders, and this is generally the same for most boats which have spreaders, apart from the Hobie 18 Classic. The numbers are pretty similar, and I've actually got the numbers. If you head over to my Patreon page, you don't have to sign up. You can just look at the posts on there, and you'll find the numbers that you want to adjust your spreaders to. And then once the spreaders are set, we can then adjust the diamond wires, these wires that locate onto the spreaders, and we can, so spreader rake, the angle of the spreaders is for the weight of the sailors, and the diamond wire tension is for the strength of the wind. So as we get more wind, we'll tighten the diamond wires up more to bend the mast. If we have less wind, we'll loosen it off to straighten the mast so that we have more power. The other positive thing with, again, the numbers on that list on my Patreon page, the other thing that happens when you bend the mast more is it makes it much easier to get more downhaul on, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. If it's easier to get more downhaul on, again, you can achieve a flatter sail, which is going to make your boat much faster sailing upwind or sailing in all directions when it's windy. There we go. So continuing with the question of mast rotation. So we've done upwind. When we're reaching, if we've been sailing upwind and we've had the mast pulled in, if we're reaching with two sails, so not going downwind, then we'll keep the mast rotation in the same spot. But if you've got the time, if you're going to be reaching for a long way, I would rotate the mast back to this 45-degree kind of angle towards the shroud for reaching with two sails. And we're wanting to line them up the direction of the apparent wind on the boat. So on a rig, it's going to be more back than it is when we're sailing upwind. I think it's pretty obvious. And then the one difference that comes is if we're sailing two sails and we're going downwind, this is for strong and light winds, then we want to have the mast rotation all the way open. Again, that is giving us that nice airflow. As soon as the wind hits the mast, it's going to be like, oh, I like it. It's the right direction. And this is really important if you're sailing with a spinnaker in strong wind, because it allows you to look after your mast. Because if you think about the way that the mast bends, if this is our mast profile, sideways, it's going to bend very easily, whereas this way, it's not going to bend as easily. So if we've got the mast rotated like this, we're going to be able to bend the mast towards the back of the boat. I hope everyone's getting this great bit of 3D modeling, which means that we're going to be able to have the mast really locked in and it's not going to be able to bend that way very much, which is what the pull from the spinnaker is going to be trying to do, pull it that way. Whereas if we have the mast like this, the top of the mast, which is unsupported, is just going to be able to bend off to leeward. And if that happens for too long, with too much pressure, the mast could break. That is why we want that in there. There we are. So there we go. I think that pretty much covers it. If you've got any questions on the topic, please put them in the live chat. Just continuing on the checking in. All right, Peter in Sweden says, on the speed stick challenge, when the lake is frozen over, can I enter an ice yacht? Yes, I think so. And especially if we can get a number of ice yachts involved, then we could actually have a separate category for ice yachts. I've never considered this actually, but yes, if you want to enter an ice yacht on the speed stick, maybe it will go on a slightly separate list, because otherwise the numbers that you're going to be posting might be a little bit intimidating for everybody else who's having a look at the speed stick. All right. Who else is in the live chat? Jens is on board. Hello, Jens. Great to have you on board for this Q&A. And Ryan is on board in Maui, crack of dawn, I should think. So Ryan's got a full 24 hours to wait for the water speed 6 weeks of speed Joyrider TV competition to launch. But if you're in New Zealand, it's launched already. How does that work? I don't know. So you could be on the stick. It's not a stick. It's a leaderboard. You could be on the leaderboard already if you're in New Zealand. Crazy. All right. We've got Thomas on board as well. He says, nice round the rock race last week. Yes, that was a lot of fun taking a Hobie 14 round the rock. Enjoyed that very much. All right. Felix says, putting myself in line for a question. Any tips on maximizing speed on a Topcat K1? Any idea what the potential is? Haven't really made it past 19 knots. Yeah, tough one. I haven't sailed a Topcat. Just gonna let you know that right now. Never sailed one, but I would guess that the Topcat K1 probably 20, 21 knots would be the top speed. And the Topcat has a skeg hull, which I'm gonna draw. So a skeg hull, which from the side, it's the most common boat with this shape hull is a Dart 18. Might have a slightly different bow profile. But this is what your skeg hull looks like. So it's the skeg, this part, that sits below the water and stops the boat from just sliding sideways in the same way that like on a Tornado or a modern hull on an F-18 have a dagger board, very deep, or the other one, which is an asymmetric hull, like on a early Prindle or Hobie, has got this flat side which stops it from sliding sideways. Oh, and in fact, let's add to the list. Complete circle. What could it be? It's a Minicat 420. The Minicat 420 and all of the Minicat range have a small plastic, small but quite long plastic skeg, which is there to stop it from sliding sideways. Yeah, I've never actually thought about the shape of the hull on that before. But how does this relate to making the boat go fast? Well, with this shape of hull, the question is, how much do we want the hull out of the water to get optimal speed? With this shape of hull, we want it just lifted. So if this was the windward hull, we'd want it just out of the water, because if we lift the hull too high, they're going to slide sideways too much and we're going to lose a lot of power. Like with all of our sailing that we're doing, what we're trying to do is sail with as much main sheet tension on as we can when it's windy, which means if you can't sail with, like, say, Traveller Central, main sheet tight, capsize, too much power. So we can let the Traveller out perhaps halfway, see what it's like to sheet in there. And we're going to be sailing on a reaching course. So for the speed, so if our wind is in the usual direction, we're going to start off on a beam reach, and this is going to be the same for all the different hull shapes. Is when the hull lifts, when the windward hull lifts like this, if we feel that it wants to lift higher than optimal because of the amount of wind, then we want to take the boat more downwind, because having the boat more downwind is going to transfer that heeling force into more boat speed. So with the asymmetric hull, that's the only one which we really want to have the hull flying, I'm not going to say quite high, but we're going to want it so that to get the really high speed on the asymmetric hull, to gauge it, you want the whole of the windward rudder blade out of the water. And then doing this where if it wants to lift higher, sheet out the main a bit, turn more downwind, and then if you feel that the bows aren't dangerously close to going in, then pull in the main sheet again. The reason we're sheeting out to turn downwind is because if you don't, the bows will try to drive into the water, which could result in an exciting capsize, the pitch pole. Yeah, so hull lifts, you've got loads of power, ease the main sheet, turn more downwind. If it's really windy, get the crew to ease the jib as well, turn more downwind. If it feels like you've got a bit of wiggle room with the bow of your boat, like it's, I'd say if the bow of your boat was like here, I'd say you're pretty safe to sheet in. If it's already like here, don't sheet in, because if you sheet in with the bow already down like that, you are under the water. Again, as well, sorry, of course, we want to be as far back as possible on the boat to lever against the bow. But the whole trick of it is get on a beam reach. In fact, start off to make it as, if you haven't done much of this sort of sailing, start off on an upwind point of sail, because it's equal on the trapeze on an upwind point of sail. And then when you're feeling ready for it, bear away. So move back on the boat first, then bear away. Whenever we bear away in the stronger winds, we have to ease sheet. If we don't ease sheet when we bear away, it's just going to try to drive the bow down. The rudders are going to come out. It's going to become very unbalanced, and you might stick the nose in. So whenever you bear away from one point of sail to another, you have to ease the sheet. Then get on the beam reach and then get settled there. And then once you're settled there, then it's time to start thinking about this hull lifting game. Hull lifts, we're going to bear away more, but keeping the hull out of the water. Same with all of the different styles. There we go. So I think that is a pretty good answer to the question. Yeah, and when we're going for speed, we don't necessarily need to have the sails really flat. But I wouldn't change your downhaul setting from that of what you've been using on the upwind. All right. I'd just like to say hello to everybody who has tuned in since the last checking in. Thanks for coming. Exciting times on Joyrider TV. September really is the fastest month of the year. So if you've got the opportunity to get out and sail fast, then let's do that. All right. So question from Jens. So it's faster to crank the downhaul and play the main than leave the downhaul looser and play more main. Yes. Yeah, because what we're trying to do is still sail with the main. We're back to upwind again. So we're trying to sail with the main sheet as tight as possible. The tighter you have the main sheet, or that you're able to have the main sheet, that means the less main sheet you have to play. If your main sheet is out a long way, then your mainsail is been created by the pressure in it rather than you being in control. As soon as you've eased more than, if we're looking at distance between the blocks are there, if we've eased more than that much on the blocks, then we haven't got much control over the shape of the mainsail, which is why it's so important to have really good tension in the main sheet. If you've got upwind, downhaul cranked on, mast rotation in the lift them up maybe about a foot above the deck, that is going to effectively be like reducing your sail area under the boat. Very handy. Then the next thing you want to do, if you feel that you're absolutely overpowered to the hilt, is ease the traveler. And if you ease the traveler like that much, let's measure that much. Imperial, 4 inches. 4 inches of traveler eased is going to make a huge difference to the amount of power on the boat. So ease the traveler 4 inches, the main sheet in hard, and then start working the main sheet from that. Going for speed. If you're constantly having to dump loads and loads of main sheet, let the traveler out a bit more. Got more control over the shape of the mainsail. And if your mainsail is too open, then the top of the mainsail is going to be almost square to the boat, and then the top of the mainsail is just going to be trying to drive the bows down. There we go. All right, Felix says how to stop the jib leech from flapping in high winds. Yeah, so if the leech of your jib is flapping in high winds, then what you would want to do is we want to increase the tension in the leech of the jib. It might be because of the actual jib and there's nothing much we can do about it. But the way to address that is, here's our jib, and then on the corner of most jibs of performance boats, we've got a plate with maybe 5, maybe 4 holes in the clew. If we move our attachment point up, if we move it downwards, it's going to give us more tension in the foot and less in the leech. So if you've got a flapping leech, move that up. If it's already up, the other thing we can do is move upwards by, on the adjuster here, the adjuster has been made in an unrealistic size just to help show this. Have it up on the adjuster, it's going to mean that our sheeting angle is going to effectively be more down, which is going to help to tighten up the leech. But sometimes it's just the actual jib itself has past its best before date. Perhaps it's not got very good shape anymore. Yeah. But hopefully it's because of the adjustment. All right. So Benny says on my Hobie 18, the spreader point 90 degrees out from the mast, nothing to adjust there. Yeah, that's what I thought. So the purpose of the diamond wires, this is what I thought. It's been a long time since I've sailed a Hobie 18, but the purpose of the diamond wires on the Hobie 18 are just to stiffen the mast, to make the mast stronger rather than to actually put pre-bend into the mast like on an F18, for example. All right, we've got Elaine on board. Hello, Elaine. Do you know if there is an active group or network for female cat sailors? I don't know. I would have to say that's the only answer I've got at this time. If we need to create a group for female cat sailors, I think best these days does seem to be on Facebook. The Facebook cat sailing groups are really good and extremely supportive, and that seems to be the platform where such things get checked the most often. I know that what's it called, Hobie Cat Sailboats or something group on Facebook. Every time someone posts anything on there, it'll have 50 replies within a few days. So I think that is the best platform to do something, and it just takes somebody to set it up. So that's all. I think that's all that we can. That's all that we can do. But as far as I know, there isn't anything specific set up for female sailors of small beach catamarans, which we talk about here. Okay. Zach says, joining in on a lunch break, engaged the like button. Yeah, and so could you. If you'd like to engage the like button, if you've got a spare finger, just give it a poke. And that means more people will get to see this great ocean of information which is being dished out. Okay, Duke says, Elaine, great idea. We need a Facebook group for that. Ah, that's what I just said. Yeah, agreed, Duke. I think it's the best way. Felix, very insightful and course-wise, beam reach or broad reach with the spinnaker. We have a 19 square meter reacher. I'd say in less than 16 knots of wind, a little bit further downwind with the spinnaker up, in more than 16 knots of wind. This is going for speed, by the way. Then no spinnaker. But if you feel that without the spinnaker, your boat's feeling a bit gutless, that would be the gauge. If you're kind of like, we haven't quite got enough power here, then turn a bit more downwind, put the kite up and curl your toes and see what she's got. All right, Duke says, I'm part of Ventura Multi-Hull Sailors Group on Facebook, headed to the marina right now. Very good. And Duke says, Elaine, if you're on the West Coast, come and sail with us. The response to this is a good exchange. Elaine is actually in Sweden, so it's a bit of a hike, but thanks very much. She says it's just hard to find inspirational female cat sailors and tips that fits, etc. All right, very good. Who else have we got on board? We've got Charlie Sailing on board. Hello, Charlie. Nice to have you with us in the. I'm feeling that the live chat, because we've got no further questions. So thanks to everybody for tuning in, and thanks to everybody for your questions and involvement. Today's Q&A. Yeah, so exciting times. But for those, just to put a little sweetener on this, if you're an Android user and all this talk of something you can't do is a little bit of a kick in the those places, To a little sweetener for this is going to be, I'm going to be out sending it harder than ever before, and there will be videos of every session. So if you're an Android user, you're going to be on Team Joyrider TV. You're going to be an honorary member of that team, even if you didn't make it. So it's okay. I'll be flying the flag for all of you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week. If you are going out sending it, please keep it safe out there. Yeah, knife, whistle, crash helmet, quick release, and your wits about you. Have a coffee before you go. I think that is the ingredient. All right, we've just got Derek in there in Okanagan, from the Okanagan. I don't know where that is, Derek, but I'm hoping that the weather is acceptable there and you've got the opportunity.